Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are getting very spicy. So there's a new card from Tarko Dragonstorm that I immediately wanted to play with. This is United Battlefront. This is 4 mana sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put up to 2 non-creature, non-land permanent cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield and put the rest on the bottom. So we are taking a deck that I've played occasionally on the channel that I like to call the Mighty Quinchantress, which is a enchantment-based version of a very old deck called the Mighty Quinn, which was like a control deck that basically didn't lose the game with like a bunch of weird white stuff, and eventually your opponent would give up. And you'd win a lot of games 1-0-1 in your rounds. Anyway, so I wanted to utilize this United Battlefront. So we are playing just loads of things that are hits for this while suppressing our opponent. Speaking of suppressing our opponent, we are running actual factual Suppression Field. Activated abilities cost 2 more to activate, unless they're mana abilities. So what we're going to be doing is playing this, so it's kind of going to be a Cursed Totem / Null Rod for a lot of people. It's going to stop wastelands. It's going to do all sorts of things that's really going to bother our opponent, which is exactly what we're trying to do with all of our permanents here. So we have Rest in Peace, so no graveyards, get them out of here. Leyline of Sanctity, this can start in play, which will power out our Serra Sanctum early doors. This means we can't be targeted by anything. And then we have a combo in the deck of Phyrexian Unlife and Solemnity. So Solemnity says players can't get counters. Counters can't be put on artifacts, creatures, enchantments, or lands. Then we have Phyrexian Unlife here. So what this card does is you don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. And as long as you have 0 or less life, all damage dealt to you is dealt as though it had Infect, which means they'll be dealing Infect damage, but we can't get poison counters because of Solemnity, so we just lock our opponent out of dealing us damage. That is our combo here. And obviously United Battlefront can find both halves, so that's pretty tasty. Alongside this, we also have some removal in the form of Seal from Existence. This is 1 white. When this enchantment enters, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. So it's just sort of like an Oblivion Ring effect, but it's got Ward 3, so it's very hard for our opponent to interact with. So we've got this and On Thin Ice as our ways of removing creatures and whatever. We have a one-off Damping Matrix here, just in case we really need to shut down some other stuff and the Suppression Field isn't enough. This also gets hit by the United Battlefront. So how do we win the game, I hear you ask? Very good question. Slowly is the main answer to that one. But we have Court of Grace. This will pop out a 1/1 angel every, 1/1 spirit every turn. However, if we have the Monarch, it gets us a 4/4 angel, and this gives you the Monarch when you play it. So hopefully we can suppress our opponent into a situation where we can play the Court of Grace and it'll be good. And we get to start making some some angels even. Then we have March of the Canonized. This is an interesting one. So it's X white, and we do end up with a lot of mana in this deck. I will say that much. So we create X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink. At the beginning of our upkeep, if our devotion to white and black is 7 or greater, which means we have to have 7 white pips across the cards we have in play, then we get a 4/3 white and black vampire demon creature token with flying. That's quite a mouthful. So this gives us 1/1s and then it gives us 4/3s. So we can dump a load of mana and get a bunch of guys here. We're obviously going to have lots of permanents, so getting the devotion is relatively likely. And we can find this off United Battlefront. Now, we don't get any vampire creatures when we get it off the battlefront, but if we just need a win condition, we can dig to that. And that is pretty much what we're doing here. There's lots of different things you can play in a deck like this. So Deafening Silence, for example, we've got it in the board this time. You can run things like Ghostly Prison if you're really worried about creatures. You can run Porphyry Nose to kill creatures. There's lots of different options available. So this is just what we've come to today to test things out, and then we can fine-tune it at a later date. Sideboard-wise, we've got 4 defense grid because we're not great into counter spells, because we're just trying to like dump a big thing into play every turn. And sometimes that'll work, sometimes it won't. And if we have a defense grid, it's way more likely to just let us get our things going. Then we have another Rest in Peace when we do need to really hate on the graveyards. We have the Deafening Silence for some of the combo decks, so we can, between this and Rest in Peace, we have some reasonable options. We have 2 Auramancy to give our enchantment shrouds. By having 2, we can get both of these out at some point, which makes everything protected. And then we have Nevermore. This is 1 white. As this enchantment enters, name a non-land card. Spells with the chosen name can't be cast. So this is our little meddling mage on an enchantment. We might be able to get 2 off of United Battlefront one day and just shut down what our opponent's doing, which would be hilarious. But this is for some of the combo matchups. So decks like Doomsday, for example. Doomsday is not a card that we're going to be particularly good against. If we cast Nevermore, naming Doomsday, or even naming Thassa's Oracle, we can hopefully get through that. So that's kind of the plan here. I've played builds of this with Runed Halo and all sorts before. There's definitely some different options. I haven't played Suppression Field in this yet. I had previous builds that had Urza's Saga in, because obviously the Ancient Tomb is something we're using to power out our 3-drops and our 4-drops. So having an Urza's Saga, which is also an enchantment for the purposes of Serra Sanctum, was pretty good. But I wanted to try out Suppression Field today to see if this is worth the squeeze. I don't think the juice is going to be worth the squeeze on this for us today, but it might be. So that is what we're doing. It's going to be a little bit grindy, and we're going to make some people miserable, but it should be a real fun time. This is kind of like the mirror image of Pox. Instead of reducing all your opponent's resources, you make it so their resources don't matter. So strap in, like and subscribe, and let's get some Phyrexian Unlife combo going. If you've been watching my content and thinking, I'd like to play some Legacy too, then check out 3for1 Trading, one of Europe's leading Magic the Gathering retailers. They have weekly offers and upload new cards every Wednesday. And it's not just Legacy stuff they sell. They have a beautiful selection of vintage and old school cards too. Support from sponsors like 3for1 Trading make it possible for me to put out videos and help keep Legacy alive, so why not give them some love? Click their link in the description below and use my code COW3 to enjoy free worldwide shipping on your first order over €500. I don't particularly want to keep a one-lander, so I think we're going to mulligan this one. Okay, I'll keep this one. We will put back a Solemnity. And we're going to answer some creatures and hopefully draw into our things that matter. An island, a ponder. They shuffled off the ponder. United Battlefront. That is very much one of the things we want to be doing. We need to get some enchantments in play to get our Serra Sanctum tap in. But hopefully we can do that soon. Maybe they'll play like a Delver or something, then we can on thin ice it. But we'll see. I'm more expecting something like a Sneak and Show style deck. With basic island into ponder, that's kind of one of the more common ways that decks that style like this tend to play out at this moment in time. But we'll see. Yeah, very much Sneak and Show vibes here. Oh, okay, we're doing something else. Sprite Dragon. Haven't seen this one in a hot minute. So this is a 2-mana 1/1 flying haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. I imagine our opponent's going to be playing the red knife thing. That whenever you cast 2 spells, you get a guy. And it gives you like it's like a monk prowess guy. I can't remember what that card is called, but we're going to be playing on the channel next week, so stay tuned for that one. Alright, our opponent played a creature, so that turns on our thin ice, which is nice. Let's see what nonsense on our deck they saw from their Mishra's Bauble. Right, they saw just a snow-covered plains. Our opponent's playing quite slowly here. I don't know if they've got something else going on, but it's taking us a few minutes to get through a turn here. Let's on thin ice my plains. See if we can take out this Sprite Dragon. This is a round of days. I am expecting our opponent to be running days. Alright, goodbye Sprite Dragon. Let's see if we can kill the next creature. I have to debate whether or not I fire a Solemnity into a daze. Another Sprite Dragon, sure. We got anything 0 mana to follow it up with? A Mishra's Bauble, sure. This will meet the same fate as the first one. They get to see something else weird and wonderful in our deck. I have to imagine our opponent has counter spells here. 3 cards left in our opponent's hand here. They're about to draw a 4th off of the bauble. What did they see? Another snow-covered plain, so we're not revealing any of our secrets. Not yet, anyway. Alright, let's see if we can on thin ice this creature as well. So next turn, our Serra Sanctum will tap for 2, so we'll have access to 5 mana. So we could cast a United Battlefront around a daze, or we could try and bait out a Force of Will using our Solemnity. Urza's Bauble. Okay. Solemnity, pretty good against Sprite Dragons. Weirdly, because this is symmetrical, so it's just players can't get counters. And creatures, artifacts, and enchantments, and lands. I played builds with this with Urza's Saga where you use the Solemnity to lock in the certain stage of your saga, so you just keep making constructs without it dying. I think we can try out the Solemnity here, because it does actually look pretty good on this board. Let's see what we draw, though. Another Plains. Alright, I'm going to keep the Serra Sanctum back here in case of Wasteland. We're just going to try Solemnity so their Sprite Dragon can't grow anymore. And if they want to fire off a Force of Will, they might fire it off here. It's certainly a reasonable thing to counterspell weird cards when you see them. I really don't want to see our opponent play a Spell Pierce here, though. That would really annoy me. Here it is. Okay, it's a Brainstorm. They're just getting the counter on this while they can. You're seeing a bit more in the way of Spell Pierces in Legacy right now, so maybe we should be a bit more aware of that. Alright, we're in with the Solemnity. So this Sprite Dragon is locked in at 3/3 for now. They could bounce this. They won't get a counter on it if they bounce it though, because the bounce spell trigger would resolve. They won't get a counter, and then this leaves play. Dragon's Rage Channeler, just a little guy. Petty Theft. Okay, so this is the exact situation I mentioned. So they're going to bounce this. They don't get a counter on their Sprite Dragon, and then this comes up, and then they attack us for 3. Maybe they follow up with a Ponder or something. And then next time we cast United Battlefront. Okay, they're bolting us. They have 1 card in hand, so as long as we play around the days, we should be fine. Let's see what we draw and see if it changes anything. Another one of those. Okay. Serra's Sanctum. Am I using this now, or is it better off just to fire in the Battlefront? If we play the Solemnity first, then this attacks for 3, 4, and then we can get dazed. So I think we are casting the Battlefront. We can pay around a daze. Okay, so we can just put Phyrexian Unlife and Solemnity into play here. Alright, we have assembled the combo. We can put in another Solemnity as well. Just double up on that. So we can't really die, but they have shown us they have bounce spells. So we need to get a second Phyrexian Unlife, really, just to really make sure that we're totally safe. And then we go to the slow march to winning the game, which might be a very slow march, but we'll see. Our opponent technically decks first, if that's important. How many borrows they have? All right, they're just scooping it. All right, let's go. So, what do I like the look of here? I have to imagine our opponent has stuff that makes us consider this Rest in Peace to be useful. I think Defense Grid, though, is also quite useful here too. Suppression Field, good against their fetch lands, good against their wastelands. Court of Grace looks actually kind of bad here, so let's just not have the Court of Grace. Damping Matrix I don't think we need here. That's more for like combo-y sort of decks. We're going to be having lots of permanents to activate. Like, this isn't going to stop anything that they have. This is like for Nadu or stuff where you'd normally board in a Null Rod. We can cut one more thing here. How much do I like the ley lines? Like, they're fine. They're not that impressive. They stop us getting bolted, but that's not really the deal. So if we take those out, then we could have like another Rest in Peace. If we wanted to, we could have a couple of Auramancies just to protect our combo. Oh. Nevermore is something we could play. Like, there's always a good card to name, but 3 mana is quite a lot for that sort of effect. It's more for when we just need to try and stop something that is going to be completely game-ending. I guess we could bring in Nevermore and name Petty Theft. But the Auramancy kind of does the same deal, and maybe they have other bounce spells. What does this hand do? It's not really casting any spells, so we're going to mulligan this. I'll keep this one. I will bin off. Maybe it's the March of the Canonized. We can worry about that one later. It's probably pretty good in this matchup. I've already got thoughts of other builds of this deck I want to play. A basic mountain into a Dragon's Rage Channeler. You got it. So this is only going to be a 1-1 if our Rest in Peace gets to stick. Ooh, this is basically the card that makes our deck good. If you can call our deck good. But this card, we really kick up a notch when we start casting these. So having 2 of them feels like a good place to be. I think we might Rest in Peace and then use... just trying to work out how we're going to play around potential dazes. If our opponent isn't putting pressure on us, we can just wait till turn 3, then play Defense Grid around daze, and then play a Rest in Peace or United Battlefront, depending on what our opponent has mana up. Alright, let's see if this guy's going to flip this turn or not. A Sprite Dragon. Our opponent scooping to the combo might mean they only have 1 Brazen Borrower in the main deck. Ancient Tomb. That is a good one. I will play a Defense Grid around a daze. This does open us up to Wasteland. We didn't see one in the previous game, but we gave him no reason to really play out, because by the time we got the Serra Sanctum, it was already game over. So he could well have a Wasteland here. Experimental Augury. Which one's this? Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Proliferate. Okay. The Proliferate deck against my Solemnity deck. What a world. So this means that we get to just resolve a United Battlefront this turn, which might just win the game. At the very least, it can just find removal and kill guys. There's a lot it can do. They can proliferate poison counters on us, I suppose, if we end up with a Phyrexian Unlife, but without the Solemnity. Because Phyrexian Unlife is still just gain 10 a lot of the time, which is fine. And if they hit you for, if you're on like 1 life and they hit you for like 20, you still just go to 0 and don't get any poison counters. Alright, so they have a big guy. Understood. It's a lot of damage. I do think we need to go for United Battlefront here. We've got 8 removal spells that it can find, as well as a bunch of other bits and pieces. A Solemnity. Okay, that could be useful soon. Let's play this. What do we want here? Seal from Existence is probably fine. I don't think we could take another defense grid just so we're guaranteed to resolve the next thing. Or we could get the March of the Canonized, because that's going to be up and running quite soon. It's definitely the seal. It's probably the defense grid. Yeah, I think it's the defense grid. And then this can take out the Sprite Dragon. So we're not dead to Lightning Bolt. Next turn might be tricky though, because of the Ancient Tomb. But we'll know if we can tap the Ancient Tomb or not, because they have to bolt us in their turn due to the defense grids, because they have to pay 6 extra for their spells on our turn. If they had a bolt in their hand, they probably would fight off in the upkeep, so they could maybe draw something better. Okay. Maybe they drew it for the turn. So this is going to turn off our Ancient Tomb, which is a bit awkward. I won't lie. Maybe we do want the... Oh, okay, just have 2 lightning bolts. Okay, maybe we do want the ley lines. Maybe the ley lines are better than the suppression fields. Like, we could board in the Deafening Silence, but I don't think it's actually going to be that good. Alright, let's just submit this. We are... I think we're in an okay spot. I think we're relatively okay into decks that look like our opponents. We get double Leyline of Sanctity. And we can start jamming Solemnities and Greater Auramancies. Alright, I'm going to keep this one. We've got to be careful with our Serra Sanctum. Again, they haven't shown us Wastelands. Maybe instead of Wastelands they have like more burn spells, or, you know, more aggressive stuff, because they do seem like they're a red splashing blue deck rather than anything else. This does give us 2 white mana on turn 1 if we want it though. I'm just gonna... Am I going to play this Greater Auramancy on 1? Is that worth doing? Or should I just play out this to play around Wastelands? Alright, I'm going to play out the Greater Auramancy now. This could backfire, because Solemnity is actively good in this matchup when they're trying to put counters on their Sprite Dragons. But if they Wasteland, we've got time to maybe draw into a white source anyway. Tap for 3 on its own next turn if this Auramancy resolves. Alright. We're not getting Lightning Bolted for quite some time, I'll tell you that much. An island, so no turn 1 Channeler. They could have Delvers. That's something that I wouldn't be surprised to see in our opponent's deck. Vicious Bauble. Corrie Cutter Knife, I think, is the... Corrie Cutter? Something like that. Is the knife that makes guys that I think might be in our opponent's deck. Alright, they didn't Wasteland us. That's good news. A Snow-Covered Plains. Let's play a Solemnity around a daze, please. Okay. So their Sprite Dragons will only ever be 1/1s. Right, they're Brainstormed and our end step there. They do have a Wasteland. That's not actually that bad for us. We managed to play our white spells. We've found a Plains. We've got some more mana here. I think the problem is going to be whether or not we draw action rather than anything else here. They shuffled off the Ponder. It's back over to us. We're not under any pressure yet, so we've got time to just keep setting up here. March of the Canonized. Alright, we can make a bunch of stuff here. This is already going to be making 4/3s if we can put this into play, because this will add 2 to our devotion. We've already got 6. Corrie Steelcutter. This is the thing I've been talking about. So it's an equipped creature gets +1/+1, has trample and haste. When you cast your second spell each turn, you get a 1/1 monk with prowess. And you can pay 2 to equip it. And the knife equips to the monk. So if you play this out and then play a 0-drop, you immediately get a monk. And this gives haste, so they're going to be able to bash into us for a little bit here. If we can draw a white source, we can just make a 4/3 every single turn. And that'd be pretty good. Right, we've drawn a white source. I'm going to do this. Am I going to do this for 1? Playing around 1 days, or do I want to play around 2 days? I think I'll just play around 2 days here. Because once this is in, we're just going to get a 4/3 every turn. Now this is at the beginning of upkeep, before they started putting like end of turn on all the cards instead. So we'll take another hit from the monk, and then we'll start popping off with some 4/3s. But let's say this got countered by a force or something, and we put some Ancient Tomb mana into it, that is just reducing the amount of turns our opponent needs to kill us. And we do need to draw a little bit more than what we've got here. Although, if this March of the Canonized sticks and we start popping out 4/3s, then we're probably okay. We're in. We'll make 0/1/1 white vampires. And then we'll start making some friends. Now, our opponent can't shoot us with lightning bolts, but they can shoot our creatures. A lightning bolt, targeting their own face. The things that we make our opponent do here. Can they fire off another one and get an additional monk? Surprised they would use a bolt when we are about to get some 4/3s though. A Murktide Regent. Yeah, that certainly is worth getting into play. Now, this is only going to be a 3/3 because of this Solemnity. But we will need to find something to keep us alive here. Now, this has flying, right? Yes, okay. So we're about to get a 4/3 flyer. I'm expecting another lightning bolt from our opponent though. Snow-covered plains. That's not really the one we wanted there. A Sprite Dragon. This will always be a 1/1. There is the lightning bolt that I expected to see. This is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 damages. So we really need to find a Phyrexian Unlife pretty soon. But if we do, the game is basically just locked out. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. A lot of damages. So we make ourselves a 4/3. That's a blocker. That helps. On thin ice. I guess we are removing one of their creatures here. And hope they don't have a spell. So we get rid of the Murktide. We block the monk. We take 3. And then next turn, we hopefully draw Phyrexian Unlife. Okay, a land. That's not a spell. They're not attacking. That's wild to me. You can shut off our Ancient Tomb. I think it's worth just forcing the damage there. Because every turn we're getting another 4/3, right? So we're getting better at blocking. Plains, this means we can cast the 4 mana spell if we draw it. So now if they attack us, only 2 damage gets through. Which would have been lethal if they'd have attacked last turn. I think our opponent's helped us out a little bit here. This card is looking alright though. 4/3 flyers, not bad. Solemnity. I will cast it. Makes it harder for them to bounce things. Not that they can necessarily bounce things anyway, but... Right, they're cracking a fetch land. Are they hard casting a Force of Will? This is a very weird thing to hard cast a Force of Will on though. Alright, we'll just sit back with all of our friends. We're not dead to a price of progress. Because we only take 2. I guess we are... No, we're not dead because we don't block this one, we block these 3. But every turn that goes by is great news for us. We're here for a long time, not a good time. 4/3, let's go. I'll play out another basic and I'll pass. If we get like another one of our removal spells, I can't remember what they're called now, the 3 mana one, we can take out the knife so that we don't have as many like hasty things to worry about. Because they can play something and equip this just for the regular equip mana. Alright, our opponent's sort of stocking up with a bunch of cards over there. Alright, I'll just keep playing Solemnities here. So next turn we can do an Alpha Strike and our opponent can die to it. But they've got a bunch of cards in hand. If they're lightning bolts, then they start taking out vampires. I don't feel very good about that. But we can maybe poke with 1 vampire here. Urza's Bauble. Alright, this is going to grow their monks. So the maximum amount of creatures they can attack with... Well, that's not true. You can only make 1... I was going to say the maximum amount of creatures they can attack with is 5. That's not, strictly speaking, true. What is this? Force of Will targeting their own Urza's Bauble. Just to get another monk here. But the problem is, we have got 5 vampires now. We've had to make our opponent do some really horrible things as matchup, like bolt their face and counterspell their own Urza's Bauble for 5 mana. But that's also a Force of Will they don't have for us now, which is very interesting to me. So if we draw the Phyrexian Unlife, they might not be able to counter it. Like they can attack and they can trade off a bunch of guys here. Looks like that's what they're planning on doing. Which is fine. They have to cast 2 spells to get a guy. We just get guys every turn. But they may be doing that so that we have to block so that we can't kill them. Maybe that's what they were worried about. United Battlefront. Don't mind if I do. If this resolves, I'd be amazed if we lost this game. A Rest in Peace is useful. Seal from Existence also useful. We can just get 2 seals here. That will take out the knife. And then this one will take out the... The monk is probably worse for us than the Sprite Dragon. As funny as that is. Am I okay poking for 4 here? Alright, they're just scooping it up to our nonsense. Beautiful. Deck's perfect. Let's go. Round 2. Right, we can't keep this one, so we're going to mulligan. This one is fine. I think we've probably been off the Suppression Field. Because I guess the Damping Matrix doesn't stop lands is the thing. Alright, maybe I'll talk myself out of this Damping Matrix. Alright, Leyline of Sanctity. Let's hope we're not playing against anyone today who has Pernicious Deed, because we're not beating Pernicious Deed. Alright. So we have Suppression Field around a daze next turn. If that resolves, we don't have to worry about getting Wastelanded off our Ancient Tomb either. No Micro Spawns in Legacy anymore to blow up our basics that have all our on Thin Ices on. Alright, a Marsh Flats and pass. Can I Suppression Field? You want to crack that Marsh Flats first. Whatever you do, opponent. If they let us get this in without cracking their Marsh Flats, that's a horrible situation for them. Alright, they're cracking the Marsh Flats. Are they doing anything else? A Shadowy Backstreet. Okay. Are we looking at some kind of Death and Taxes style deck? Relic of Progenitors. This suggests to me that my opponent is playing the... what's it called? The god from the racing car set. Ether Drift. I can't remember what it's called, but it's the 3-mana guy, and when you have 7 cards exiled, it becomes a big guy. Otherwise, it's just a thing that draws you cards whenever stuff gets exiled on your turn. Wish I could remember the name of that card now. A Boggart Bog. Are we paying some life? We are paying some life. Overlord of the Baelmerk. Sure. We don't get to on Thin Ice this one. What are they going to get back? An Emperor of Bones. That's very expensive to do anything with. And they've shown us Wastelands as well. Okay, they found a Felia. That is a more annoying one to find for our purposes. A Rest in Peace. A little bit late, unfortunately, but 1 turn too late. It does stop this Overlord from getting anything else back. And then we can hopefully just clean them up with On Thin Ice. Alright. Kind of wishing we had some Porphyry nodes. That's basically the white drop of honey. So how is this worded? Whenever this permanent attacks on mills 4 cards, then return a card from your graveyard. Yes, so it's not worded the same way as something like a Baragoyf, which gets back a card among the cards that were taken out. This just mills you and then gets back anything from your graveyard. Court of Grace. I think I'm just going to play another Suppression Field and make sure that we're suppressing everything nicely. Wouldn't mind finding another land. But the plan here is just to... if we find a Serra Sanctum, then we're away here. We can just remove both their things, make a Court of Grace, win the game, I think. But they're going to play a Felia, they're going to untap, they're going to attack us for 2, then they're going to get an Overlord. We're going to untap, we're going to kill either the Felia or the Overlord. Probably the Overlord, because it's a 5/5. But obviously Felia can find some annoying things. Like Witch Enchanter is probably in their deck. They've already... yeah, there we go. Witch Blessed Meadow. On the other side of this, it disenchants our stuff, and we don't really want that to happen. Ketramos, that's the one. So how many cards are in exile right now? A few. So what? 5 cards in our opponent's exile. When they blink the Overlord and it comes in, they'll mill 4, which will turn Ketramos on and draw them a card. So then we probably have to kill the Ketramos. I really need to draw a white source. That gets us the ability to deal with our opponent's stuff here. Please, deck, be good to us. Let's see, is there meaning anything interesting? No, just the things I would expect to see in our opponent's deck. Right, so now Ketramos is a creature. We can actually kill it. They also have this Overlord of the Baelmerk. Okay, so which creature are we killing here? Probably the 5/5. I think that's the scariest thing they have here. Then we take 7. They don't get to draw a card here because Ketramos only triggers on your turn. Next turn we can kill the Ketramos, but then we do still need to deal with this Felia. We're a 24 land deck, so we got quite a lot of mana in there. And, you know, we've got 2 of those are soul lands and... sorry, yeah, 4 of those are soul lands and 4 of them are Serra Sanctum, which obviously taps for all the mana in the world. Okay, so... I suspect they're not blinking anything unless they think getting a... I don't think getting a... Okay, they're going to blink out our Leyline of Sanctity. Are they going to interrupt us here? So they can't grow their creature, but they can blink out something we've got going. Are they going to Thoughtseize us or something? There is a Thoughtseize. They can take out our On Thin Ice here. So we're kind of dead. We need to draw another On Thin Ice. Orcish Bowmasters, that gets to ping us. So if we draw Phyrexian Unlife, then they blink it out and kill us. I don't think we have a solution here. I think we are just dead. But we'll have a look and see what we draw and then decide if we're scooping or not. United Battlefront. No mana, so we're just going to move on. Yeah, basically, we got kind of caught up with the mana there. We could have been in a situation where our opponent wasn't able to turn this into a creature either, if we'd have just been able to draw the land and kill the failure as well, which would have given us more time to operate. What do I like here? I think the Auramancies look good. I think we also need to discover what we are getting rid of. I don't like the Damping Matrix that much. I still like the Suppression Field though. How do I feel about these ley lines? They stop Thoughtseizes, which is fine, but not impressive. The Court of Grace is a bit of a double-edged sword at times. I think we just want some Auramancies. Nevermore is kind of interesting. Like, if there's like just a thing that we're scared of, we can say no to it. What would we take out? Maybe one of the Rest in Pieces, but the Rest in Peace stops their Baelmerk nonsense. Again, I wish we had some Porphyry Nodes in the sideboard just to help out these creaturey matchups. But obviously we've got like a combo that can just stonewall whatever our opponent's doing. We're going to take our Rest in Peace and just stick in a Nevermore. Can name Witch Enchanter or something. Or if they get a card back of their Overlord, we can then name it so they can't play it. Sure, this seems okay. March of the Canonized is actively good for us, I think. The 4/3s will be bigger than a lot of what our opponent can do. And if we make some little guys, that's also going to be pretty good. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we do have enough to start making guys off of this anyway. Basic planes and no play from our opponent. Alright, we might be shutting off some fetch lands very soon. We seem to be very good at drawing multiple copies of half of our combo. Another planes from our opponent, so no black mana yet. There's probably just going to be a failure end step. Can we draw a land? You can draw a land. Sure. Let's get this Phyrexian Unlife in. We'll stack a few of these in play, and then we can march once this is going to start making 4/3s. So in comes a failure end step, I suspect. Yep. Just this little dog. They're going to blink out anything of ours. They're going to blink out the Suppression Field so they can use a fetch land. This failure is pretty irritating for us. Right, yep, so it's the Suppression Field, so we're going to see Marsh Flats cracking to get a swamp here. Or they can get a scrub land or whatever. A White Orchid Phantom. They're going to blow up their own land to get a black source. No targets, is that? Okay. On Thin Ice. So we can On Thin Ice the failure. And then we can march to the Canonized and take out the... and then that will have exactly 7 then. So we've got 5 now, and this is 2 on its own. So next time we're just going to start making a bunch of... Well, start making 4/3s. It's a bit better than Bitter Blossom, isn't it? 4/3s every turn. Doesn't even cost us life. I think I have underrated how good this card is in our deck. The next build of this deck is going to have 4 of these bad boys in. We found the win condition of choice. I did have a build that's win condition was like Mistveil Plains, so we're just trying to grind our opponent out and then put cards on the bottom of our library. Which was often how the Mighty Quinchantress used to win. But I decided against that. Probably for the best. So we take 2 here. Next turn we get 4/3. And now we're really in it. Does my opponent think they can beat 4/3 flyer every single turn? Might be difficult. I guess I can build up towards a Witch Meadow Enchanter and blow this up. We have a Suppression Field in play, but they could wasteland our Serra Sanctum still. Because they have 2 mana here. So I'm just going to play a Phyrexian Unlife. Are we trading backwards and forwards, or are we just going to keep assembling a board here? I think we're going to play it defensively. We have inevitability because we just have this cranking out guys every turn. And eventually we'll get enough permanents in play that our opponent will just be locked out of the game. They found their black source. And they're paying 3 life for the pleasure. What they got here? Like a Barragoyf. There's nothing in the graveyard, so it won't be very good. I think if they had a Barragoyf, they might have... I guess they didn't have any targets for this. It's only hit non-basics, doesn't it? I thought they could hit anything. Okay, so they got Flicker Wisp here. What are they going to flicker? Our token, presumably? Oh, they're going to flicker out our snow-covered plains. Yeah, that's pretty annoying. Seal from existence. I don't want to play this out because if we play it out and they wasteland it, then we can't play the 4-drop. Right, let's seal from existence, please. Let's seal away this failure, please. I had enough of that. And then we just sit back, just keep churning out the big boys. What's our devotion now? 9. Excellent. A Skyclave Apparition. What is this going to target? The March, probably? Yeah, that's pretty good. So we have 2 4/3s now. We need to be careful about the amount of win conditions in our deck. Because we've got 3 left. Now obviously we have 2 4/3s, which are win conditions potentially. These decks tend to not run many Flicker Wisps, so they might not have another Flicker Wisp. Need to find our little 4-mana spell and just go wild. Shadowy Backstreet. First card being put into our opponent's graveyard this particular game. Nope, it's on top of their library. Still no cards in our opponent's graveyard. Okay. I don't believe they can attack here. I could maybe poke with just a Flicker Wisp and just be okay with the trade. Snow-covered plains. When we find another one of these March of whatever they're called, March of the Canonized, we're going to be able to kick it for quite a lot here. So we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana. So we'll be able to make 9 tokens. Alright, so they're just blinking their Skyclave. What are they going to take next? Leyline? This probably doesn't seem that good. Maybe it's a Suppression Field. Like, this just doesn't feel like there's much they can get because they haven't got the mana to get back the failure because of the Ward 3 on this. We get back a 2/2. Technically a win condition. Alright, they're getting rid of our Leyline. Does this mean they want to play an Orcish Bowmasters and get a ping off? But again, we don't care about 1/1s that much. Especially since they've just given us a free 2/2. And now if this Skyclave dies, we get a 4/4. Pretty big game. Alright. They're pointing removal at things that just came for free with another spell we had. We will need to find something, but we got a lot of time here. So they're probably going to blink the Flicker Wisp here. I think that's the best option. Because they blink the Flicker Wisp and they can just take out our demon. Okay, they're going for the Skyclave. What is it they're getting rid of? They want to get back the failure here. They're going for the paying the ward mode. That's reasonable. We have a 4/4 we can attack with without worrying about it dying. Alright, so they are targeting the seal and they're going to pay 3 to break it. Okay. So we've got 4/4. So failure can just blink our tokens out of play. So failure is pretty good against what we're doing. Would like to be able to remove this failure. We've got a lot of cards that do that in our deck. Thoughtseize. 3 damages for free. I'll take it. Snow-covered plains. Not what we wanted here. So we're attacking. I'm trying to work out how many things we're attacking with. So failure is just going to blink out. If we leave anything back, failure will blink it out. Probably. But if we attack with these 2, I think that's fine. Because these are the things that they would want to blink out. Blinking out a 2/2 is kind of irrelevant. We can't attack a 2/2 into their first striker anyway. Like, they can obviously start blinking the Skyclave, but then we get 3/3. I guess they can grind their way through all these Phyrexian Unlifes eventually. They're going to take... Okay, they're going to take the trade here. That's good. I like to get this Flicker Wisp off the board. They take 4. We're technically on 30 because of the Phyrexian Unlifes. But the failure is probably just going to blink out the... No, they can't blink out the token here because then they die to the other tokens. They have to blink out this token and they can come in for some damage. They could blink out our Suppression Field to activate this, but then they can just pay to activate it anyway. Bit of a weird game. Like, there's a lot of things we could do to make this matchup like unlosable in terms of tweaking our deck configuration. Alright, so they are getting rid of the 2/2. That's fine. So next turn we crash with a 4/4 again for the same reasons. They didn't play anything. Solemnity. Okay, that's an interesting one. The problem is, if we play it, then our opponent blinks out their Skyclave. But then we can block their thing anyway. Right, a Bowmasters. They're just chumping this. So if we'd have played the Solemnity, the Bowmasters doesn't actually make a token. Because it's a 0/0 and they can't put the +1/+1 on it. Right, so chumping here. If I play this out, if they blink this, then we get a 3/3 that can block the Failure. So I think we do play this out. Because at the moment our opponent just has an easy line where they Failure, blink the illusion. Right, they're cracking their Prismatic Vista. They got a Swamp. Alright, opponent, you go ahead. Another Skyclave, Ketramos. Can't attack or block at the moment. But when they start blinking stuff, they do draw cards. They lose life as well, which isn't nothing. Alright, so they're going to come in with everything. What are they phasing out here? Just our token, sure. Can you please draw the 4-drop and just dig into our deck? That'd be lovely. United Battlefronts, please. A Serra's Sanctum. I'll play it out. This way, if we draw the March thing, we can Serra Sanctum twice. So how much damage is this? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 7. There's 7, right? Okay. We need to stop drawing lands. We can draw United Battlefronts, though. We might just be able to lock this one up. What are they going to blink out here? The Solemnity. Okay. 2, 4, 6, 7. So how many good draws do we have? On Thin Ice, if it can shred the Failure, is pretty good. Seal from Existence is pretty good. The 4-drop, obviously, very good. Another Solemnity is good. Overlord of the Balemerc, sure. They can get back a Flicker Wisp here. That's really good. They did get back the Flicker Wisp. Sure. I think we're going to lose this one. We did just bottom out and draw nothing but lands. Seal from Existence. So Flicker Wisp can blink this out, but it will come back. No, Flicker Wisp will blink the Skyclave. Right? And then the Skyclave will come back. And then they'll pay for the 3 and they get rid of the seal. So if we seal away the Skyclave, then they just get to do Failure stuff. Yeah, this is pretty awkward for us. So we take out the Failure. Oh, we still got time because we have 3 Phyrexian Unlife. So we are on 13 rather than 3 here. Our opponent is going to be hitting us in pretty substantive chunks here. They're going to put me to 0. They got back a Witch Enchanter. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. That's pretty bad news for us too. We really need to draw our 4-drop. Flicker Wisp. Targeting their Skyclave Apparition. Sure. So now they're going to get it back and hit our Solemnity here. And they're going for the Seal from Existence. They could just take out the Solemnity here. Okay. Can we draw United Battlefront? We can just draw Plains. Alright, we just bricked off and drew nothing but lands that game, really. That was very unfortunate. We already had 3 cards that did nothing. That's very unfortunate. I think we should be pretty good against this matchup, but we can obviously add more stuff in to be better against it. Like we could play things like Humility, which this deck will just immediately lose to. So there's definitely ways that if you want to beat Death and Taxes, it's very easy to do so. Alright, let's go to round 3. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from Team Trios to Old School and Pre-Modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend ran by one of the best TOs in Europe. Okay, I'll keep this on. We got removal, got half our combo, we just need a little bit of mana. We have 24 lands in deck, so we are odds on to find them. Once Upon a Time, what flavour of Once Upon a Time we're looking at here? Cradle Control? Ocelot Pride. Okay, we're on something a bit different here. They're going to play the Pussycat, or they got the Guide of Souls first? Step Links. Oh, we're playing cats. Do I care enough about this Step Links? We could curve 1, 2, possibly 3, and just keep going. I guess we just want to make sure that we don't die here. Wow, Step Links. If you're unfamiliar with this one, it gets +2/+2 whenever you make a land, or if a land comes into play. And back in Standard, this was like the best one drop because you played this and there's a 1/1 first striker that had the same text in red. So you just kind of went a bit wild with it. Alright, Ocelot Prize. They're going to start making cats. This was obviously something that was always on the cards here. Serra's Sanctum. Okay, I think we're going to play our land out, play our Rest in Peace out. It's not the most impressive thing against our opponent by any stretch of the imagination, but it makes our Serra's Sanctum tap for more mana next turn. So next turn we can just cast United Battlefront, and then the turn after the Serra's Sanctum should be able to play everything in our hand that we want to. And we might just hit into the things that United Battlefront just locks our opponent out of the game with. And the Guide of Souls, you carry on, opponent. A Wasteland. That is not what I wanted to see. Maybe that changes what we have to do here. We'll see what we draw. I imagine casting United Battlefront is likely to be the best thing we can do. Damping Matrix. That's not really the one, is it? Alright, United Battlefront. Let's go. Not great hits. I'll get the seal from existence though. I will take out this Ocelot Pride, I think. And we'll make no little friends. We are one white pip away from March of the Canonized pumping out guys. So next turn we should be alright. We probably have to play out the Phyrexian Unlife first. This Wasteland is definitely going to be poised to take out our Serra's Sanctum. Our opponent might have something like the Witch Meadow creature. Right, there goes the Wasteland here. They're going to bash us for 4. They don't have the energy yet, so if they have a creature they can play an energy and do another 2 damage by pumping with the old Guide of Souls. Ocelot Pride. Yep. Another one. Oakley dokley. We really need to hit a land here. Been very difficult today because we've been getting flooded or mana screwed. And I just want to have the nice amount of lands. Obviously that's what happens when you play a deck that's non-blue in Legacy, I guess. Okay, so we missed on land for a turn. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they have 3 energy, so we're dead here. Ugh. I was just going to die because of missing on land again. But last game we lost because we had too much land. Awkward one indeed. Again, this is a matchup where we can build our deck in a way that just automatically beats this deck. It's not necessarily what we've done here though. So, what looks good? I don't really like the Damping Matrix here. That could probably become a Greater Auramancy. I don't really like the Rest in Peace. So that can become another Auramancy and some Nevermores, and that's probably fine. Do I think they're even going to target us with anything? Probably not, so maybe we get rid of those and have a couple of Nevermores. Sure. But yeah, you could run Ghostly Prison, you can run Humility, you can run Porphyry Nodes, you can even run things like Wrath of God if you want to. But there's lots of ways that you can beat what our opponent's putting down with a sort of rough shell like ours. Now, working out what the best way of building our entire deck is one of the reasons we're playing it, because you don't know until you start testing it sometimes. Okay, we have the best card in our deck. Probably. I don't know. It's pretty good. Okay, so we can answer a creature. We can maybe answer another creature down the stretch. I did think about playing Oblivion Ring instead of Seal, because Oblivion Ring is easy to cast off of Ancient Tomb and Plains. A Step Links. Right, I think we are just going to go for preserving our life total and assuming that the cards we have in hand are good enough. Because United Battlefront is going to be pretty good. This does give us more pips for Devotion, though, which is another thing to consider. Alright, United Battlefront, let's get this going. Okay, March of the Canonized and Solemnity. So we've got 4 for our Devotion right now. We can cast a Seal. I wonder if they've got a Failure here. That would be very unthematic, though, because they're playing cats. You can't put a dog in the mix. Once upon a time. Okay. A Guide of Souls. Sure, we can seal that away if we need to. Force of Vigor. Pitching Mossborn Hydra. What is that? 3 mana, landfall. Oh, okay. I see what our opponent's just like a full-on landfall aggro deck. So they're probably going to play this Mossborn Hydra. If they have another one. Seems better than doing the Guide of Souls thing. But if they got an Ocelot Pride, then they're in good shape. They do not have it. Phyrexian Unlife. Do we just seal this away? I think it's probably reasonable to do so. This enables quite a lot of nonsense from our opponent's deck. So burned a Wasteland on our Ancient Tomb rather than our Sanctum, which is good news for us. No Mossborn Hydra over there. Let's Unlife in. Let's play an Ancient Tomb, and we'll pass it over. What is this? Web Strike Elite. Cycling X green. When you cast this card, destroy up to one target artifact or enchantment with mana value X. Okay. Can't say that I know this card existed. It's a 2-mana 3/3 with reach though. Just like random guys are so good these days. My opponent's deck looks pretty cool though. I've toyed around with like mono green landfall with like Scythe Cat Cub and stuff. Alright, Step Links is getting bigger. But we haven't taken a lot of damage so far. Lush Portico, okay. So they're not just going to cast Escape Shift. What does this do? When this aura enters, exile target non-land opponent controls until this aura leaves the battlefield. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0, has lifelink and ward 2. Okay, so they're going to take out our Phyrexian Unlife, I guess. We've got an answer for this Step Links, and we can pay the ward 2 quite easily. So we get our Phyrexian Unlife back. Solemnity, eh? Assemble the combo. Now they've shown us Force of Vigor, so it's not as if they don't have ways of fighting against this. But they need to find ways of reducing our life total and removing our enchantments whilst we brick off and do nothing. Okay. They found a way through. They got the Step Links back. Ocelot Pride. Sure. And a land. Alright, we're into the time where we draw nothing but planes again. My favourite time of the day. It's another Force of Vigor. A Mossborn Hydra. That dies immediately because of Solemnity. Because it's a 0/0 that comes in with a counter. But it can't come in with a counter if Solemnity exists. Alright, so we're going to take 3 here and then they're going to make themselves another cat. So it's starting to get a little bit hairy out there. Right, we're just going to play the things we draw. If we can draw the March of whatever it's called. I think we should be running a build that has 4 of them in. Because they do look really good. Kind of helps our aggro matchup whilst also giving us some like threat against other decks. Right, this is 4, 5, 6. No crop rotation to kill us. Okay, we need to draw good. And Nevermore. Alright. We got beaten by the fun little cats deck. That is a bit of an indictment for our build, I think. Let's go to round 4. Only 1 land. I don't think we can keep this. This seems fine. I think I'm going to put away the Court of Grace. I'll keep this and let's go. Maybe we could have got rid of one of our removal spells, but I just kept a bit of pressure. But it's a 4-drop and that's a long way off. Hedge Maze from our opponent. Are we a Beanstalker or are we a Narduer? This suggests more Narduy. So our grip full of removal and suppression fields is not a bad place for us to be. A Daze, sure. We've got another suppression field, but we don't have a land, so I didn't want to play around Daze when we don't know if we're drawing another land. Alright, we'll keep going. Right, we're in. So fetch lands are off. Well, they're not off, they're expensive to use. Nomads and Core is 2 mana to draw 1 card, which is a pretty respectable rate. Oh, the Beanstalk. Okay, so they are a Beanstalker, but they also have... but maybe they're like a Nardu Beanstalker. That would be weird. Who knows? I'm curious. Oh, sweet. We're in the part where we don't draw the lands, rather than when we draw all the lands. Right, we finally drew another land. Excellent. We could seal from existence and get rid of this Beanstalk. I don't hate that. What do we got here? Is this a Brainstormer response? Just a Daze. That's fine. How do they activate the Verdant Catacombs here? Do they have them? I can't remember if they had the mana up or if they had the Beanstalk this time. I don't know. We'll keep an eye on that in case I'm just losing my mind. Ure? A Green Sun. Okay. You can always overpay for the Green Sun. I don't know what our opponent's deck is doing, but it's cool and I like it. I would like to cast a Solemnity, but I think we have to probably just cast it on Thin Ice. Alright, we have a Leyline Binding. We're losing our Suppression Field. This is going to unlock their fetches. A Brainstorm. And a Shuffle. Before we can get any sort of additional Suppression Field effects down. What is the play here? I think I'm just going to float this in around a daze. Pretty good against the little pussycat though. Doesn't get any counters on. Opponent's saying it's rude because the only thing that has counters on they've shown us is just a poor little pussycat. Another Beanstalk. There's a lot of Beanstalks here. Gotta be careful where we put our Seal from Existence, I think. Another Beanstalk. Okay, so maybe our plan is to deck our opponent. Okay. Strap in, this could be a while. Serra's Sanctum. Okay, let's play this Leyline of Sanctity. We are not going to seal from existence anything in play. Our plan is to seal from existence our opponent's creatures, that wherever they're trying to win the game with, so that we can just make them draw out their whole deck. Now, I suspect they have an Endurance, but we can probably find a Rest in Peace before they get to the bottom of their deck. It's going to be a weird, silly long one here. With the Blue Command might be a thing on our opponent's deck. So they're going to cast a Green Sun Zenith big enough that they draw 3 cards off the Beanstalk. Just a casual draw 3 and make a guy. Sigarda. Flying Hexproof. Huh. That's pretty good, isn't it? I guess we have very few turns to find our other half of our combo here. And resolve it. So what dazes they're going to have forces. Especially since they're playing Beanstalks. I think the other build that I had in mind is looking a lot better than the one we're playing. Which is unfortunate. I wanted to just keep this sort of simple mono-white one to come out first. But I think the black-white one has a lot more important tools for the meta. Ooh. That's an interesting one. It's not going to resolve, but it's interesting. I'm going to leave one to play around a daze. Can I have 7 1/1s? I suspect the answer to this is no. This is going to be a Rakshas's Bargain. It is. Which also draws them 3 cards before they even get to do anything. We have a choice as well. If this spell resolves, we can play on Thin Ice so that we start pumping out 4/3s. Which might be an interesting approach. I can't imagine this is going to resolve. Right, there's the Force of Will. Alright, our opponent's only got 20 cards left in their deck. Right, we obviously can't remotely keep up with the card advantage our opponent's putting down. Leyline Binding. I guess to get rid of Solemnity here. Obviously we can still have the 4-drop and find both halves, but our opponent's got a lot of cards. We might get to see more of their deck as they discard more cards and get a bit of a better handle of what they're working with, because this is a very unorthodox build our opponent's playing. It's cool though. The Sigarda is not something I was expecting, because you can't Edict this either. Like, you need a Wrath. It's the only way to get rid of it. Okay, we're drawing some more cards. Are they going to Thassa's Oracle me here? They got back their cat. Little do they know, we're going to remove it. Well, we're going to attempt to. 13 cards. So they're going to draw 2 more cards naturally. That's 12. So we need to make them draw 12 things, which is 4 spells that trigger out the Beanstalk is what we need our opponent to do. Okay, this is a fun one. So whenever they draw a card, they get to pump something, or they get to put counters on something at the beginning of combat based on the number of cards they've drawn, and it draws a card itself. So if they Beanstalk something out now, they can just make an enormous creature. Like, it's turn 10 and our opponent has drawn 50 cards. Alright, I tell a lie. They're going to deck themselves on turn 11, I think, here. Like, I assume they just got a Endurance that they can just fire up. There is the Endurance. They're evoking it. They're stacking the trigger so it shuffles itself in. They drew 55 cards by... Well, they'd seen 55 cards by the time we got to my turn 11. And this is coming in for 12. So we need to draw the 4-drop and resolve it. Is basically our only way out of here. I think we're dead. Our opponent's got a lot of cards over there. Court of Grace. That's not going to cut the mustard here. Alright. Oh dear, oh dear. So, defense grid, this feels like the one we want. Rest in Peace is fine. I like the Greater Auramancy. I kind of like the Nevermore here, weirdly. There's a bunch of stuff I like. There's stuff I don't really need here. So, the Leyline of Sanctity is no good. Damping Matrix, pretty medium. I think we still want the Thin Ice. How do I feel about... I think the Court is actually pretty good here. Maybe we don't need all of these Rest in Peace. We can just have one in the deck. How useful is a Suppression Field? Compared to the things that we're going to be getting instead, I think we'll just trim on the Suppression Field here. Okay. We have our combo. We also have the Greater Auramancy to protect it. This is playable. We have to play around the days, I think. But then we have to also not play into the Force after the Beanstalk. So it's a bit of an awkward situation. This does not cast days. Okay, so we can play the Auramancy. We can hit the Dryad Arbor if we really think our opponent is desperate for this land. But I think I'm just going to play the Auramancy around the days. No daisies over there. If they play a blue source, then next turn we can play on Thin Ice. And then just sort of slow our roll. Obviously we're going to need to draw a land at some point. Nevermore can block out Force of Wills. It can block out the Endurance if our opponent's going to try and loop the whole deck. There's a lot of options we have available. Scythe Cat Cub. Okay. Right, let's see if we can get rid of the cat. The next turn we can play out Solemnity around a daze, which shuts off future cats. And then we can play the Unlife, which locks our combo up. And then we can play Nevermore and try and name something relevant. We've got a reasonable mix of lands and spells today in this particular game. Leovold, Emissary of Trest. Okay. I guess targeting our opponent is going to be something we're going to be... Ooh, I do like the defense grid here, though. Let's get that in. If we draw a Serra Sanctum, we can double spell next turn as well. Force of Will, okay. Signal revealed. Much rather they do that before they have a Beanstalk in play. I'll take 4. Alright, we'll play this one out first then, because this one being countered matters less. Leyline Binding. Are they going to take out our Auramancy? They are indeed. Okay. Take some damages. Another Solemnity. Okay. This is fine. Force of Negation. It's a force. But we have ourselves more Solemnity. And afterwards we can play the Nevermore on Leyline Binding and stop them being able to take out any of our permanents. That is the plan. Up the Beanstalk. Sure. United Battlefront's pretty good here. But I think we need to play Solemnity around the days. Force of Will with the Beanstalk. Sure. Our opponent has had an answer to literally everything we played. Which is unfortunate because they haven't been sculpting or drawing extra cards until they've got this Beanstalk down. Okay, let's be united in the Battlefront. Can we draw a land to play around days? We can't. We could play this. I think we just on... Let's get the Battlefront down. I got days as well. I've been inclined to board out the days against us on the draw from our opponent anyway, because we have a lot of mana with like Ancient Tombs and the Serra Sanctums and stuff. Our opponent said that's dope, and then they're immediately going to cast a counterspell. Yeah, so our opponent has had Force of Will, Force of Negation, Force of Will, Force of Negation, Leyline Binding. Like, what are we supposed to do? 2 of those are also cantripping as well. Another Leyline Binding. Jeez. Yeah, like our opponent... I think our opponent's deck is probably good against us, but that draw was ridiculous from our opponent. Yikes. Okay, we got one more round to go. We are not doing great. We might be able to put a 2-3 on the board, though. We're not really getting any free wins from some of our enchantments, really, either, which is a shame. Like, sometimes, like, Leylines and stuff can just give you free wins. Nettle Sentinel. Wowzers, trousers. Been a hot minute since I've seen one of those. At least our spells are going to resolve, but we might be dead next turn. If they go, like, Nettle Sentinel, Cradle, Heritage Druid, that could be game. Part of the puzzle. Birchlaw Ranger, that's not quite a Nettle Sentinel, not quite a Heritage Druid, but it can do a little impression of one for this turn. Where is our Suppression Field? Actually, no, Suppression Field doesn't stop this, does it? We need things like Cursed Totem to stop the activate abilities that mana relays. Okay, so they have double Nettle Sentinel. So all their 1-drops are free. What does it say? Untap target creature. I guess if we draw an Ancient Tomb and can go Unlife into Solemnity, we might be alright. They probably have some kind of like Reclamation-y Sage type thing. Alright, there's the Ancient Tomb. That is the thing I did say that we wanted. Let's get Phyrexian Unlife in. Right, we're just bringing the beats. Serra's Sanctum, you say? I will cast Solemnity first. Get that set up. And play this out. Tap this for some, and we'll play a Rest in Peace. So I played builds of this before with Helm of Obedience in, so that you can just win with your Rest in Peace combo. That's also fine as a thing to do. But we're locking our opponent out until they blow up our stuff. Wirewood Symbiote. Okay. So the thing our opponent's been missing though is a draw engine. So they can put a bunch of damage into us. Let's go into the Battlefront and see if we can dig up some more copies just to give us a little bit of extra insulation here. What do I like here? Another Solemnity is okay. A Suppression Field makes the Wirewood Symbiote a lot worse. That's probably reasonable, isn't it? We could onto Ice and try and take out a guy. I think just having redundant copies of some of our spells is a good place to be. And then if we can find a second Phyrexian Unlife, I'd feel a lot safer. As opposed to 0. Can I just Green Sun Zenith for something that blows up our Phyrexian Unlife? They just have a Besagi and then we die. We get our basic though. Okay. That was pretty grim. Okay. Yikes. I guess we want Greater Auramancy. The Rest in Peace does nothing here. So that can come out. Damping Matrix, pretty good. I guess that gets us a Nevermore. Suppression Field is fine. It makes Besagi cost more. Makes Wirewood Symbiote worse. Leyline of Sanctity doesn't look very good here. So board those out and get in some Nevermores. Deafening Silence obviously does very little here. Alright. If we had just played the build that was just, we never lose to creatures, we'd have had a great league, to be honest. If we just run like all our Ghostly Prisons and Porphyry Nodes and all that sort of jazz. I think we need something that plays the board earlier than that. Like technically that's earlier. We at least have the mana underneath us. Well, we are getting absolutely clowned by people today. I buy you. We're getting Thought Seized. No, just a Symbiote. Auramancy just makes it so that Force of Vigor can't kill stuff. It can kill Auramancy, and then they have to then spend something else to kill the next thing. But we've got Seal from Existence. Are they going to Pendelhaven? No, they didn't want to get him for 2 with their Symbiote. Alright, I think we will seal away their guy. If they have fewer guys, it means that we don't have to worry about Guy's Cradle just giving them a huge jump and natural ordering them. Right, so this has Shroud and Ward 3. So this is going to be a tricky one for our opponent to get their Wirewood Symbiote back. Bowmaster, an Abrupt Decay. Sure. But that's an Abrupt Decay that's not being used on one of our other enchantments. Metal Sentinel's good. Can I draw a land here? A Wirewood Symbiote. We can answer that one. It's not the most exciting. Ancient Tomb. We've drawn the land, so we're going to fire in with a United Battlefront. March of the Canonized. How many pips do we have at the moment? 1, 2. This would be 3, 4, 5, 6. So not enough to immediately start making guys. That's not good enough. That means I think we want the Greater Auramancy here and the Phyrexian Unlife. We're so close to setting up the double Auramancy, which just shields all your board. But was not the case. A Natural Order. What is this going to be? An Atraxa? It is Atraxa. I suspect they're going to put a Besagi in their hand here. Okay, so they got Green Sun Zenith, Elvish Visionary, Gaia's Cradle. So no Besagi. Oh, I accidentally clicked away with a Visionary. They have a Visionary as well as these cards. Okay. We've got a few turns to find something. So we can Nevermore on Green Sun Zenith. That's pretty good. So we go 1, 2, 3. Cast Nevermore. Green Sun Zenith. Apologies, you can hear a very low flying plane above my house. Let's seal away this Atraxa. Get out of here. So now we are hellbent. We haven't got a lot of pressure coming in. We will need to find something. We've got some reasonable rips though. A glimpse of nature. Okay, we're just glimpsing now, are we? They don't have many cards in hand. They can't cast one of them. And another one of them is a Cradle. Allosaurus Shepherd. Right, we can use F6 this turn because we haven't got anything going on. Cradle. A Visionary. This will draw a couple of cards. They can bounce the Visionary with the Symbiote and then replay the Visionary. Just to get a little deeper. Okay, now this could be a problem. We can't die this turn though. Well, that's not strictly speaking true. It's very unlikely we die this turn. Because we have Phyrexian Unlife backed by a Greater Auramancy. We can go to minus loads. But yeah, just some good old-fashioned elves. Okay, so they bounced the elf, replayed it. 6 cards in hand. Just dropping Nettle Sentinels. Abrupt Decay on the Auramancy. Alright, that is step 1 to blowing up all of our things. So I need to Natural Order for a Crate Hoof and blow up our Phyrexian Unlife. I guess I don't have to do it all in one turn though. They can put us down to a low life total. And then, or to like a negative life total, and then blow this up at some point and we die. Okay. Just doing some symbiote action. Force of Vigor. So this is going to untap the Nettle Sentinels, but my trigger is on top of it. So this isn't going to work. Was it targeting? Phyrexian Unlife and our thing. Where do they get the 3 mana to pay for it? Am I missing something? I thought they only had 1 in their pool. Maybe I missed it because I'm left 6th. Because we haven't got anything going on here. Natural Order, this gets creative, and we die. Alright, I understand. Deck is bad. Okay. So we finished with a 1-4, and 4 of those were 0-2 rounds, which is not a good place to be, as you can probably imagine. So let's talk about the deck and why it's bad. So we tried to play a build that maybe could get some free wins with some of the stuff, and we never got the free wins. I think some of the cards we're using to get those free wins aren't necessarily great. Like Rest in Peace is a little bit slow to get your free wins. Leyline of Sanctity, there's not that many decks that it's a free win against. So there's some issues going on there. I also think that today we played against a lot of people that had answers to our combo just like built into their deck, which was definitely not where I wanted to be. We also did get a bit jammed up by like the control deck just having everything all the time and just being able to draw more cards than us. I feel the matches we lost that we maybe shouldn't have lost were against like the little Mitty aggro deck. So I think we could have beaten Death and Taxes and we could have beaten the little aggro cat deck. Because we could have just played some more stuff. Like I said before, if we just play like the creature heavy, we never lose the creature build. And then try and board into beating some of the combo decks, maybe that's a better way of doing it. So one of the other builds of this that I had was a black-white build, which instead of running Rest in Peace, it ran Leyline of the Void. Now, Leyline of the Void plus Leyline of Sanctity means that you can sometimes get 2 mana on turn 1 with a Serra Sanctum, which is kind of a big deal, because then you can then play some other bits and pieces, like a Suppression Field or whatever. However, how did Suppression Field actually feel today? It just made abilities cost more, but it didn't stop my opponent from besieging my stuff. So that made me kind of sad. And if we play this, it means that we don't get to play Urza's Saga in our mana base. And when I've played this before, I've had Urza's Saga because it's an artifact, which means... Sorry, it's an enchantment, which means it pumps our Serra Sanctum anyway and can do some good work there. But we didn't get to do that today. And the games that we sort of flooded out, if one of those lands was like a Saga, that would have felt way better. We could have put some stuff in play. We could have been able to, like, you know, block some of our opponent's creatures maybe. And we could have like a little package of stuff. If we still want to play like Damping Matrix type stuff, we could just have things like Grafdigger's Cage and Pithy Needle that we can get that we don't need to have activated abilities on. So that is something we could look at. Court of Grace is quite expensive and I didn't really ever want this. I don't think we should be running Court of Grace. I think we should be running March of the Canonized, possibly as a 4 of, which is kind of wild. But this card, it gives you some little blockers that you can keep yourself safe with, and the win condition of this is pretty real. So I'm a big fan of this card. Obviously, you know, this deck is a little bit clunky, but I think this card is pretty cool. Also, this says devotion to white and black, right? The black build with the ley lines will give you devotion to this. What's more, one of the other cards I wanted to play in the black build was Chains of Mephistopheles. If you don't know what Chains of Mephistopheles is, I'm going to put it up right now. This is an old nonsense card that's very hard to understand. But basically, if your opponent would draw a card, except the first one they draw each turn in their draw step. So a bit like how Orcish Bowmasters works, right? So if they draw an extra card, they have to discard a card instead of drawing that card. So all these Beanstalk decks are going to get horribly ruined by this Chains of Mephistopheles. So they discard the card and then they draw a card, right? So effectively, this replaces their additional draws with a loot. So they're getting card selection, but not card advantage, right? The next bit is, if they draw a card and can't discard a card, they mill instead. So the Beanstalk stuff would start milling them instead if they don't have any cards in hand. But basically what this does is it stops extra card draws and turns them into loots. And that can be pretty useful. So the black build had some Chains of Mephistopheles in, and I think that would be an interesting way of running this. Again, I also had a build that had some Porphyry Nodes in, which is quite good. We never really got to play the matchups where Nevermore would have actually looked good, like Doomsday and stuff, where they just donk you and you can't really do much about it. Humility is a card that we could play. Sure, if we make this, we make a bunch of X1s. We make X1-1s, and then if it's Humility, then these will trade with all our opponent's creatures. And sure, if we have Humility, this is only going to make a 1-1 guy every turn. But we'll be making a 1-1 guy every turn, and it will cost us nothing, and that will be able to trade with anything our opponent plays. So we could definitely play some Humilities and really mix up how we're trying to approach this deck. But I think getting rid of this selection of cards is probably a good place to start. Probably the Damping Matrix 2. How do I feel about the Seal from Existence? Another thing we could also do is trim down on the Phyrexian Unlife and Solemnity plan and just rely on the United Battlefront to get there. So let's say we trim these two cards. That gives us 12 cards to play with. So we can stick some Urza Sagas in our mana base. That'll make us feel a little bit happier with that front. We could put 4 ley lines in. So let's just move these over here for a second. So we put 4 ley lines in over here. We put in maybe 2 Urza Saga targets. Maybe 3. Let's say 3 Urza Saga targets. We put in another couple of March of the Canonized. We put in 2 Chains of Mephistopheles. And then we can put in another removal spell. So we've just got more ways of dealing. So we could put in one of... I guess we don't really want the Humility. We want more stuff that we can find. We could play Ossification. That's a card I've played before. It's 2 mana. It pacifies and removes the abilities of a creature or planeswalker. So that's another thing we could play, because our curve is a little bit squiffy. If we're playing the Chains of Mephistopheles at 2, then our deck kind of needs a little bit more in the 2 slot maybe. Because we were definitely opening hands where it was like, okay, we play these things and then we're not really getting anywhere. So the Suppression Field doesn't really impact the board for 2 mana. There's definitely different ways we could take this. I've also thought about playing a build with United Battlefront where we're playing things like Cursed Totem and Null Rod instead. So we're going more into like an artifact-y style deck. That is an option that we could try as well. But I think you will see a better version of this on the channel at some point. If you go back to my December videos, I have a playlist of December videos. I've played versions of this in there. Or if you just look up, if you type Solemnity into my channel search bar, you'll find a bunch of decks with Solemnity. We've gone 1-4 and 4-1 and everything in between with this deck. Or versions of this deck. This did not feel great. I don't like Suppression Field very much. Like, when it's good, sure, it's going to be pretty good, but it did feel like it wasn't really lifting its weight around here at all. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one. It's something a bit wild, and we got to showcase a new card, and occasionally this looked good. I think this was definitely one of the big hits of the deck. If we weren't running Suppression... Sorry, I just had a thought. If we're not running Suppression Field, we run Staff of the Storyteller as our 2-drop. That gives us something to do on board. And it's very, very good with the old March of the Canonized, because we just make a guy every turn that puts a counter on our Staff of the Storyteller, and we draw extra cards. So, yeah. Okay, my brain is cooking here. You're going to see something at some point, and it's going to be sweet, I hope. And it'll probably have some Humilities in it. I don't think we need moats, but that is a thing you can play. I played it in previous builds. I played moats. I've played I think Ghostly Prison is better purely because we're running United Battlefront. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this if you have any ideas of how I could tweak this. I think the Staff of the Storyteller build might have to be mono-white rather than the black-white. but we lose. So the reason I want the black Leyline is because the black Leyline is the best way of getting free wins against certain decks. So that's just something to consider. All right, I'll stop rambling and I'll let you get on, but please let me know if you have any thoughts about this one. And like and subscribe, let me know if you want to see a fixed build of this. I would very much like to know if it's worth my time building it up. And yeah, goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.